All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well. So, folks, today I got a wild one for you. Over the weekend, I ended up watching a video titled, "He Spoke at His Friend's Funeral, Then His Family Learned He Killed Him." And it was a local news channel from Richmond, Virginia's YouTube channel. Has less subscriber than this channel. It was their video. The video had been up a week, had over 1 million views, and I've been doing this long enough to know that whenever a small town's local news channel's YouTube video has that amount of views in that short of time, something happened. And normally for it to pop like that nationally, it can't just be one strange occurrence. What is that? It has to be multiple strange occurrences. What is going on? And then they intertwine somehow, and you end up with a ridiculous 4-year saga. And that is the story I'm going to tell you guys today. So sit back, settle in. For this one, I got to tell you about a couple people, and we are going to start with a man named Jan Smith. Jan Smith, for the past number of years, has been the Commonwealth Attorney for this area in Richmond, Virginia. He was elected to that position. He won by getting 52% of the votes, which is common for an election like that. Wasn't a landslide, won by a couple percentages, and just like that, Jan Smith is the local prosecutor. Well, an alarming pattern started to arise as Jan Smith took over the job. Veteran detectives, veteran investigators, something would happen, they would take over the case, they would investigate the case, they're working with the victim's family. Don't worry, the case is looking good. I think we're going to be able to get justice. Just hang tight. They're making a relationship with the victim's family. They're doing all the meticulous work to investigate a crime. They put it all together in a nice package. This is going well. I know it's hard. Just you got to wait for justice. They hand that package over to Jan Smith, and nothing would happen. Jan Smith would either drop the charges or make some crazy plea deal. Nothing was going to trial. And from everything that I can find on this case and reading about it, it doesn't sound like Jan Smith was a corrupt boys club. My old Yale roommate, it's his son, charges dropped. It doesn't sound like he's bizarrely weak on crime. For this one, it comes out good old Jan Smith might be good old-fashioned incompetent, lazy. He was disciplined by the Virginia Bar in 2010 and 2012 for violating competence and diligence. And they interviewed one of the veteran detectives about him after it really started crashing down. You'll see later in the story, local law enforcement revolts against him. They pen this letter to the paper. It really starts to crash down. But long before that, the local detective did an interview about him, and he goes, "He's a nice guy. I like him. I just don't think he's got a handle on his job here. And if he was corrupt or bizarrely weak on crime or bizarrely too tough on crime, I don't think that would be the language." He wouldn't say, "He's a nice guy." That's the Jan Smith. I think maybe he just couldn't handle the workload. The cases started stacking up around him, and he probably pictured when he was running for the position that maybe he didn't picture himself actually doing the job, and he just pictured himself waving to people and patting a baby on the head and coming out of the courtroom and having reporters rush him and getting all the attention and showing up at the local Applebee's and everyone going, "That's Jan Smith. That's the Commonwealth Attorney. I voted for him. He's an important guy. That's Jan Smith." And he's, doing the thing. But when it came down to actually grinding it out day after day on these cases, it sounds like Jan Smith couldn't handle it. And his way of either staying caught up on the job or not doing the work that he couldn't handle was that he would not charge, or like I said, the bizarre plea deals. And it started to really get to law enforcement first because you have these relationships with the victim's family. You put the case together, all your hard work. You've been around for prosecutors before Jan, so you kind of know what level the evidence and everything has to be for it to be a case. You're feeling that, and just time after time. And they're saying they would feel hurt. You turn in your big packet thinking you're going to help these victims, and all of a sudden, Jan, it just kind of disappears. Nothing's around. Jan's telling, the word on the street is Jan's telling someone, yeah, the evidence wasn't good enough, or I talked to so-and-so, and they didn't think the evidence was good enough. He was always planting the seed to, we were close, but couldn't get that one to trial. And it was really a tough time for the law enforcement and for the justice system in that area, because people are starting to feel like Jan Smith is not representing the area. And another thing about Jan Smith, on top of all of that, it seems like his trademark was a big red bow tie. He was a funky bow tie guy, and he has a bunch of different colors, always wearing a funky bow tie, but it seems like the big red one was his go-to. That's the one he chose for his lawyer headshots. The local reporter, and this is totally her story, her name's Melissa Hippolyte, she caught up to Jan as it was going down, like, Jan Smith, do you have any answers for what is going on? And he was wearing the big red bow tie. He didn't want to talk. I don't want to do interviews. And I was thinking about it. I think if you're going to be a funky bow tie guy, you have to be on your game. Your wardrobe has to be on its game. The rest of it, other than the big bow tie, you have to have quality clothes that fit well, nice colors. You know, you got to be on your game with your profession, maybe demand a little respect. Like the judge in the Chandler Halderson trial, he was a funky bow tie guy, but it worked, right? He had like the hair, and the rest of his wardrobe seemed to fit. I thought it was a little bit funny. He couldn't zip up his judge gown all the way because of his bow tie. And that just something about that cracked me up. It's like, he's got to go to work to be the judge in a homicide trial where some kid chopped up his parents. And it's like, well, you got to wear your judge thing, zip it up all the way. And he's like, no, I can't zip it up quite all the way because of my bow tie. I wanted everybody to see the bow tie. But anyway, same as that judge, Jan Smith is a funky bow tie guy, but it doesn't seem to work. And I think it's because of his incompetent aura that follows him, and no one respects him, and he was not doing great at his job. And I think when he showed up, people had kind of a feeling of disgust. Great, Jan is here. So if you're not on top of your game, showing up and having everybody be like, great, Jan's here, and then on top of that, you're wearing a big red bow tie. Hi, how are you? It's not a great look. Also, too, I don't think the bow tie you don't want it to be oversized at all. It can't be too big for your head and face, or you look like a disheveled circus clown. It's always crooked. Jan, hi, I'm a bow tie guy. So Jan is tanking at every turn, blowing it beyond belief, wearing a big red bow tie to top everything off. Nothing seems to be going well. And it would be the start of the end for Jan Smith. And what finally put the nail in the coffin, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, was a case that the local area really connected to. They really started to follow it. Again, her name is Melissa Hippolyte. Started to cover it regularly. And because how Jan Smith handled that case would finally be his demise. But let's talk about that case. And for that case, first person I got to tell you about for that is a man named Rand Hooper. And Rand Hooper, it was around early 30s right now, lives in Richmond, Virginia, and we're going to go back to 2011. And the reason this story is even out is because of a civil lawsuit where a guy named Kevin sued Rand Hooper. And the story behind the civil lawsuit is Kevin is downtown Richmond, where all the bars and nightlife is. Hey, all right, this is fun. Runs in to an acquaintance, Rand Hooper, the person I'm telling you about. Oh, hey, Rand, how you doing? And the lawsuit alleges that Rand Hooper tells Kevin, I've been snorting Vicodin all night and my plan is to drink Jack Daniels for the rest of the night. And Kevin was like, cool, all right, well, have fun with that, and went off to do his own night. 3 hours later at 1 a.m., Kevin, still in the same bar area, is walking around and sees Rand Hooper again. This time, Rand Hooper is sitting in the back of his vehicle with 2 other friends, and they just are obliterated, wasted. So Kevin, who I'm sure is drunk too at that point, walks over to the vehicle to say hi again. Hey, we saw each other 3 hours ago. How's your night going? Walks over to Rand Hooper's vehicle. Rand Hooper sees him, comes out of the vehicle with a gun. What the heck? Points it at Kevin and shoots him in the arm. And it must have been some just terrible joke, or I don't know what Rand Hooper was doing with the whole, I got a gun, I'm shooting you, whoo. But it must have been some sort of accident or something, because Rand Hooper immediately was like, oh my God. And him and another guy helped Kevin, who Rand Hooper just shot, to the emergency room, which was right across the street. Rand Hooper gets charged with 2 misdemeanors because, right, you can't just pull out a gun downtown having a night out. Woo, hey. Gets 2 misdemeanors, gets 1 year in jail, but the judge suspends 11 months and 28 days in jail. So I think he did like 2 days in jail, right? So that's in 2011. Rand Hooper, pretty unforgettable night probably for old Rand Hooper. Remember that night I just shot Kevin? Ugh. But Kevin sued the Hoopers, and that was settled. I don't know for how much, but I'm sure Mr. Hooper, Rand Hooper's father, was not happy about Rand. It was probably an expensive night for Mr. Hooper. But anyway, that's 2011. And then Rand Hooper gets another DUI, and then another DUI. So we have the shooting Kevin, wasted downtown, 2 DUIs, and then that leads us into 2017, where this case that ended up leading to Jan Smith, just, you're done, Jan, go away. And for this one, we're in 2017. Rand Hooper is hanging out at his parents' riverfront property, and they're drinking. He's drinking with 2 friends. One of the friends is Graham McCormick, same as Rand Hooper, early 30s. Allegedly, they were drinking out on the dock, and then they went to bed. The next morning, Graham McCormick, one of the people that was supposedly playing cards with Rand Hooper, we're playing cards, drinking, and then went to bed. One of the 3, Graham McCormick, is nowhere to be found. Doesn't show up. Everybody's worried. His mother, Mrs. McCormick, knew he was over at the Hooper house by the river, so she comes over looking for Graham, trying to figure out where did Graham go. She comes over, talks to Rand. Rand Hooper tells Mrs. McCormick, who's already distraught because Graham McCormick, her son, is missing. She tells Mrs. McCormick that we were drinking on the docks, and then we all went to bed, and I think maybe Graham came out on the dock to call his girlfriend or something, and then didn't make it back in, or maybe he had a panic attack and went to the emergency room. And think about being Mrs. McCormick. Your son's missing. You don't know what the hell's going on. You go over to the house that he was hanging out with. Rand Hooper, who you've known probably since he was a little kid, is running his mouth going, maybe he had a panic attack and went to the emergency room, or maybe he went out to call his girlfriend. And so the mom thinking, all right, well, if he was out on the dock talking on the phone, fell, hit his head, all right, let's see if he's here. So she grabbed an oar from a boat, and Rand Hooper sat there and watched as Mrs. McCormick dipped the oar around the dock looking for her son's dead body, and he just sat there and watched her do it. And everybody's nightmare was confirmed when they found Graham McCormick's body down the way, floating in the water, and he was dead. And not thinking in a million years that Rand Hooper had anything to do with it. The McCormicks, they're longtime friends, longtime family friends. They asked Rand Hooper to speak at Graham McCormick's funeral, which Rand Hooper accepted. He went up there and he gave a speech to everybody. And 25 days after they found Graham McCormick's body, they had done a little investigation. And a big part of that investigation was they saw a boat that wasn't there the next day when Graham was missing at the Hooper residence, and it had damage, similar damage to a bulkhead that's in the water, like the boat ran into the bulkhead. And they're doing an investigation, and they bring in, for a little talk, old Rand Hooper. And finally, 25 days after they find the body, Rand Hooper admits that they went on a boat ride. Early morning, he remembers the boat hitting something hard enough that it turned the engine off. At that point, Graham McCormick was shot out of the boat. And at that point, he couldn't find Graham McCormick, and he said he figured, my friend Graham is a strong enough swimmer, surely he's okay, and just swam to shore. He said he got his bearings, brought the boat to a marina, went home, and remembers nothing else of the night. Doesn't remember who was driving the boat, doesn't remember anything else. And if you take a second to just picture that scene, it's really hard. After a few seconds, the grisly images of what probably happened that night start to flood in. And I would say it's pretty far-fetched to think that they hit the thing and then Graham flew out of the boat, was instantly killed, sank immediately. I think probably what happened is Rand Hooper's driving, hits whatever they hit, Graham gets flown out, Rand Hooper probably hit the steering column or something really hard. One, I bet Rand Hooper was so wasted to mount a rescue anyway, and then two, he's probably sitting there going, and I think Rand Hooper went into self-preservation mode, just psychopathic self-preservation mode, while his friend maybe needed help. Maybe he was just knocked out, face down in the water, and he came to, or maybe he had a broken back, or, he needed help. But I think Rand McCormick went into, years ago, I had the thing where I shot Kevin wasted downtown, and then I've had 2 DUIs since then. If I have a boating while drunk that killed, and he just figured the best thing to do was to do the story that he went with, which was, I don't know, he went out to call his girlfriend on the dock. Well, as you can imagine, the ball started rolling against Rand Hooper for the charges resulting in Graham McCormick's death, and they started doing an investigation. And remember, at the helm, when they finish the investigation, it's handed over to Jan Smith wearing his big red bow tie. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. And so they're doing an investigation. The local news is reporting it. People are getting behind the McCormick family. They're going, our longtime friends, they never even apologized. Rand Hooper's telling all these crazy stories and probably stuck out more than anyone else in the story that an investigation wasn't going the way maybe that it should, was the guy that owned the riverfront property where they found Graham McCormick's body. Because he, I think after it happened, thought, all right, well, the prosecutor will come out, we'll talk about it, he'll do an investigation. And he was, I think, ready, all right, so that everybody should be coming out to my property soon. This is where they found the body. And Jan Smith didn't come out, and a year went by. And finally, Jan Smith went out, and the guy that owns that property where they found the body, his name is Chip Woodson. And Chip Woodson, in an interview, said, finally, Jan Smith, the prosecutor, comes out to my property, looking around. We're talking about the case, and he tells me, allegedly tells Chip Woodson, that I talked to the judge in this one, and he was saying that the Commonwealth's case isn't too strong and it's not looking good for trial, so we'll probably go with a plea deal. And Chip Woodson, who owns that property, is horrified, going, what? And Jan Smith leaves, and that just did not sit right with Chip Woodson. He's sitting there going, this case does not feel right. He didn't come out and investigate for a year. Now he's out there saying the judge, hey, I talked to the judge, not looking good for us. And did not sit right. A prosecutor talking to a judge and a judge telling the prosecutor, it's not looking good for trial, pal. And so Chip Woodson, who's only connected to it is because they found Graham McCormick's body floating right by, decides, I'm going to write a letter. People are writing their impact statements. I don't know if it'll do anything, but I'm going to write out a letter how this impacted me, and I'll send it to the judge, and who knows. So Chip Woodson writes his letter, sends it to the judge, and it gets stuffed into the stack of impact letters. Cross town now, we are 2 years from when it happened. It's June of 2019, happened in August of 2017. And there is a court date for Rand Hooper. The word on the street, everybody knows, the media, Graham McCormick's family, the Hooper family, everybody knows that Jan Smith has reached a plea deal with Rand Hooper. And the deal is, what's the deal? 1 year in prison or 1 year in jail is the plea deal. And the McCormicks are not happy with it. A lot of the community is not happy with it. Everybody feels like he left his friend to die. His friend needed help. He was probably severely injured in the water, and Rand Hooper went into self-preservation mode and left him. And 1 year isn't good enough. And that's the McCormick family did interviews saying things like, we don't think the plea deal's good, we don't think a year is enough, but we're just happy that it's coming to an end. And I think pretty much everybody involved thought that this court date in June of 2019 was really just ceremonial, because everybody thought, all right, we're going to go in there, Rand Hooper's going to issue in the plea deal, and then it's going to go from there, and finally after 2 years this horrible thing will be over. Well, they get in there, and the judge holds up Chip Woodson's letter from the guy that owns the property, and he goes, I read one of the impact letters, this one from Chip Woodson, and I read it 10 times, and it shook me to the core, and it says that I allegedly talked to Jan Smith about the trial and said that I didn't think that the case was good enough or all this. I didn't talk to Mr. Smith. Think about Jan Smith was probably sitting there just horrified and starting to really crash down, probably wearing his big, stupid red bow tie. And the judge, Melissa Hippolyte, reports that to literal gasps in the courtroom. Remember, everybody thought this was just going to be the big plea deal day. To literal gasps, and then one guy was even heard saying, quote, Jesus, end quote. The judge recuses himself, says, I want to restore integrity to the case, and I'm out. I'm sorry, I did not talk to Jan about it, and so you will have a new judge. And then the thing really starts going. So then the McCormick family, they want a whole new prosecutor, and then the Hoopers, let me grab a drink real quick. The Hoopers are obviously don't want a new prosecutor because they like the plea deal with the 1 year. So all of a sudden they're putting in for a special prosecutor, and they're fighting about that. They get a new judge, and I don't know if they finally did get a new prosecutor because they put in a motion for a special prosecutor that got granted, or if Jan Smith came up for re-election, which he did, and the second time when he was up for re-election, he got 15% of the votes. And also, because of his handling of this case, his law license was suspended for a year and a day. And I like the picture as it was all really crashing down for Jan Smith, the people investigating the whole situation finally go to Jan Smith's office, which they haven't been in years, just to see what is going on. And they walk in, and the filing cabinet is so packed, it looks like it could burst. The sides are bowed out. There's little case files sticking out of the drawers. And then someone looks up, and it looks like someone has stuffed case files in the air conditioning duct. What the hell? And then someone even notices the ceiling tile looks like someone has shoved papers up there. It looks like it could fall any moment. They walk past a paper shredder that's so hot you can't even touch it. And they're walking in like, what is going on? And then someone kind of leans against a desk, and a desk drawer explodes open, and papers and files shoot everywhere. And as the papers are slowly raining down, everyone's looking at each other, and they look over at Jan Smith wearing his red bow tie, and he just goes, I may have fallen a little bit behind. I'm sorry. And everyone's like, oh my God. But from getting 52% of the votes down to 15% really shows you that the community said no to Jan Smith. So now, new judge, kind of a new trial, new prosecutor, and as of like 10 days ago, or even before that, the new judge, the big thing was, is he going to accept the plea deal for 1 year? The judge said, nope, got rid of that. The Hoopers, oh no, our big plan to get out of this unscathed is not going well. New judge, new prosecutor, plea deal's out. And as of like 10 days ago, a jury in Richmond, Virginia, after 4.5 years, convicted Ran Hooper of involuntary manslaughter and leaving his friend to die. The charge related to leaving, I gotta think, is gonna be a lot more serious, but was found guilty, hasn't been sentenced yet, and I mean, what a wild one. 1,616 days after Ran Hooper went up and spoke at Graham McCormick's funeral, pretending it was some accident where he called his girlfriend on the dock, was convicted of his death. Pretty wild. So I'm excited to, or just I guess interested to see what the sentence ends up being. If you want to keep following this one, find Melissa Hippolyte. Again, it was totally her story. I think the whole 4 years she ended up covering it. So pretty wild. I will link one of her videos down in the description. I'm going to cut it off there. Hope you guys are having a great week. Why? Stavin' why? Shamita.